beginning just about the upcoming conference?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Um, I think we're live now. Sorry, we were struggling a little bit with YouTube. But so we're live. I think we're ready to get the meeting started whenever folks are ready. And Rachel will throw the agenda in the chat in just a moment. And so I'm happy to share with everybody that our review committee for the 250th conference just met. And we have a good number of proposals, including a handful of education-focused proposals that we look forward to sharing with people. Outside of that, I'll share that Matt Warshauer is having a 250th related conference on Saturday, February 8th at Central Connecticut State University. We included it in the last e-news out from the commission, so people should have the link to that. But I believe it is free and an all-day gathering, so I think folks are welcome to go to that. I believe Nisa will be there. I'm sadly traveling, so I'll have to miss it. And then Allison had some information to share about a third 250th conference that's
Before
coming up.
that, Cindy, could you just talk a little more about like the themes of the conference? The 250, like what are the subjects and things like that?
Yeah, let me get the link to that. Okay, Rachel will take care of it. So the 250th conference that is being hosted by the commission will be Friday, March 21st at UConn Stores. It will be an all-day conference with a keynote in the morning focused on the Revolutionary War and how we've remembered the revolution over the past 250 years. We will then have 3 breakouts, and those breakout sessions, each session will have between 4 and 6 different options for sessions to participate in. It'll either be sessions related to the 4 themes of the commission, so power of place, doing history, tell inclusive stories, and for the common good. We're also going to have a group of sessions related to education and a group of sessions for art organizations. And I think a lot of these sessions are relevant for a wide variety of different audiences. But we wanted to make sure that specific groups of people had something to attend at each of the different time periods. And then we're going to have a closing keynote that really ties together the day's events. Lunch will be served, and we are going to be asking, or the registration fee will be $25 per person to help cover some of the food. But there will be scholarships available. And I think we are going to make an effort to make it free for any students who do wish to attend. So we're looking forward to that. On Monday, we should be going live with the registration link and the program. So once we have that available, we'll let folks know. Any other questions?
So we've got the conference, the America 250 conference. We've got Matt's conference coming up, and Kathy Hermes is also sponsoring a conference and listening for support. So Allison, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so Kathy, in her capacity with Connecticut Explored, is working with the Center for Connecticut Studies at EastCon, and they're putting on a conference in September of 25, and she's titling it, or they're titling it, People of Color in Connecticut's Revolutionary Era. So Kathy asked me to share the link for, they're looking for sponsors. So she wanted me to let everybody know that if anybody knows of any sponsors, but also she asked if I could share the call for papers. So I'm just going to throw that in the chat with everybody. And then any additional information you can get from the Connecticut Explored website all that good stuff. And I'm sure everybody on this call probably knows Kathy. She said you could contact her directly if you had any specific questions. So that's September 20th of 25.
And the topic, the title again, Allison?
Sorry, I just muted myself. It is people of color and the Revolutionary War. And the Revolution.
Hmm.
So the date range is 1763 through the 1840s.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a pretty good spread.
Cindy, is there anything that the group that you'd want to share or with the group on any national news about America 250, regional news about America 250? Anything that you'd want to share on those fronts?
Not yet. We are having a call with the National Commission tomorrow, and I think we'll have some more insight into what the federal government is thinking in terms of their priorities moving forward. And once we have that information, we'll be happy to share with people. But outside of that call, we've had really no updates beyond the commission is not being disbanded. They are going to continue as they are with minimal changes. So we'll let people know those types of updates. And in terms of regional updates, I think New England states are really focusing on the events of the revolution. I think we'll all hear a lot from Massachusetts in the next few months. Awesome. There's a NEH Teacher Institute with New York America 250 at Fort Ticonderoga. And I'll also say, I believe there's an NEH Teacher Institute at the Mashantucket Pequot Museum coming up.
There is this summer.
Okay. Yeah. So if anyone knows of other opportunities, feel free to throw those in the chat too. And we're happy to share them out if that's helpful.
Anyone else with any news or anything else anybody wants to share? Bilal, anything from your end?
No, nothing at all.
Bilal, by the way, is as you I'm sure know, a political science guy from UHAR. If you want him to come to your house and dissect the 2024 election, he'll do that for a slight fee or whatever, that's his thing. So sorry, Bilal, I had to. My apologies.
It's the fee part that sold me.
Okay. The main purpose of our meeting today is that, well, Mesa, could you first off introduce, there may be folks here that you haven't met yet, so could you just introduce yourself to them?
Sure, yeah, I'm Misa Drew. I'm the Digital Humanities Education Manager at CTH. Started a couple months ago. Been working with Cindy and Rachel and Steve and Allison and Tony and a bunch of folks on this project. So putting together some curriculum for teachers. So, I have a background in education, worked in schools for many years, and kind of switching over to digital humanities.
So, Misa, I think you're going to do this, correct? The main point of our meeting today, or a purpose of the meeting today, is you're going to share the materials that you've started to create, and you'd look for some critiquing or some validation or whatever from our group, correct?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Rachel sent out the draft so folks could take a look at it before this. And I think there are a couple guiding questions if you want to take a look. Rachel, I think that was sent out too. Was it in the agenda?
Yep.
So just trying to make sure that the goals are clear, the materials provided are appropriate for the grade level. So far, I've just included a sample for 8th grade. Seemed the most appropriate, so there will be more to come, but just making sure that what is provided is appropriate for 8th grade. And if there are gaps in content, things that should be added by additional resources, tried to provide a variety of perspectives, different voices, so that it's not just kind of coming from one angle, but any suggestions are appreciated there. And if students are being asked to engage with the themes of America 250. And I didn't really list those out exclusively, but obviously as we kind of create more of a final packet, focusing on America 250, obviously, will be a part of it, but there are just so many ways that you can tie lessons into those 4 themes. So I didn't divide them by that specifically. But.
And I'll just add in, hi, Mike Kamisis, Director of Digital Humanities. Just about where we are in the process right now. Misa's done a great job of bringing information together, but what we're really looking for is this a forum that will help get this content into classrooms? I'm not so much focused on the content right now. We use an example. We will use other examples in the future, but is this a format that works? If it is, what we're trying to do, and this is something new for CTH, is we're trying to go beyond just teach it, right? And Misa and I have been talking about there's no teach it for some of the things that we're going to do here, and that'll become part of the packet as well. A little more kind of call out kind of curriculum. I'm not an educator, so I rely on Misa and this group. But really just more about the format right now. And I know that Tony, Allison, and Steve have given her some great feedback. So that's where we are. So I hope we don't focus too much on the content of the example right now and more of like those questions, using the content as an example, like, is this appropriate? Is this a good way to present information? That's what I'm trying to get at for this. Because I can see this as living beyond the 250, and this could be something new that CT Humanities does in coordination with a bunch of all of you for a variety of topics to get Connecticut content into the classroom. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Danielle, please.
Okay, sorry. So as an 8th grade teacher, I looked at this and I really think that it is a great format to give to teachers. I think one thing that would be great to add to it are different kind of organizers or manipulatives that would be there ready for the teacher. So different types of organizers or different ways, because especially like in the 8th grade level, like in my classroom, I have kids of all different abilities and all different languages, like in the classroom. So the content is great, like having the different types of things that you can do, like lessons or extension activities, having that there, but then also having those different types of either like organizers or things that are printout that are ready for the teachers to use is like perfect to kind of coincide with it. Even like I think it said like write a letter, like even just having that built out with it, because like time is money, right? So like having that format, like I think teachers would like love that, making it look like it's an old letter, like those like little things would be a great thing to just add. Like I print stuff on like parchment paper, and you would think that 8th graders think that that is elementary school-ish. It is not, and they like love it. And I borrow the 5th grade wrap kits from the Connecticut Museum of Culture and History, and like we write out like Israel Putnam's like Oath of Allegiance. And yes, we will do these kinds of things, but just having those, again, those manipulatives, so that the teachers don't have to, okay, I could write a letter, okay, but that's going to take me time. Just adding those little things would be super helpful.
Yes, that's definitely going to be part of it. I wanted to make sure there were printable handouts for students.
Yeah.
Haven't gotten to that part yet, but definitely on there. So thank you.
Other suggestions or comments? Tracy, please. Go ahead, Tracy.
Thank you. I feel like there needs to be a little bit more thought about what the point of the lesson is. And as I read through it, and as I've read through many lessons that have been set up with the standards, it just didn't seem much different than ones we wrote 15 years ago. I mean, it seems to me like the big point about this woman is that she was the publisher of a newspaper that was publishing patriot information, and nobody else was doing that. And she was making this decision to do this. She was out there taking a chance. And I have to say, I feel like if we're following what Connecticut 250 is asking us to do, we're asking kids to engage in history. And there really were no primary sources in this in this and I mean, it seems to me the big idea of what we're trying to do is to get kids to relate a specific event or person in this case to the ideas of the American Revolution. And I think that the questions can be more generic than you have, like, how does this relate to how does this relate to the idea of equality? How does this relate to the idea of democracy? How does this relate to the idea of the ability to rebel? I mean, we should be asking that about all these materials. And it just didn't seem like there was anything particular to 250, even though I mean, here we have two women who owned a paper mill. And then this woman who is making the decisions about being a publisher. It just seems like in the materials that you had, which was really from Connecticut, I think it's connecticuthistory.org, it sort of told this woman's story, but it didn't get to the heart of what makes her so interesting, or at least to me, and to revolutionaries. Like, why might you see this woman as a revolutionary? And so I just think um, these lessons need, uh, and I think I think it was Danielle was saying, she has kids who are not great readers. There need to be more images, and kids need to be able to address sort of these bigger questions rather than things specific to this text. Um, and and that our push is really about I mean, the other thing that I was sort of chuckling about is one of the big things about Connecticut 250 is make it local. Well, there are three local places in this article: Hartford, Manchester, and Lebanon. The words were there, but nothing was made about those local places. And that, I mean, if I lived in one of those towns, I would want this lesson to jump out at me and say, "Oh, wow, this woman was right here," because that helps to get kids' interest going. And so I I guess I just didn't see how kids were engaging in any but sort of an intellectual trying to answer the questioned way. So I know that's rough, but that was my first reaction. And then I said, okay, I think I can write a better lesson. And I actually wrote one, and I sent it to, I don't know who I sent it to. Uh, I just think these can be way more lively and way more apt to Connecticut 250. I just don't see the difference between this lesson and the ones we've been writing for the last 15 years.
Thank you, Tracy, for that feedback. Again, going back to the idea of we're looking for the form right now, and I think we have not really, so we were using this as an example, and we're using ConnecticutHistory.org as the place we're pulling from, because we want to highlight, our encyclopedia and our work and really inform what we're doing. And like I said earlier, we realized while doing this, we don't have that much about this person in terms of curriculum, teaching, more than encyclopedia entry. And I want to use this as an opportunity to take your feedback and bring it back and say, right, maybe we need to retell the story a little differently to be engaging. But I think, right now, this is a rough draft. This is a draft for this group to get feedback like that. We think we're on the right path and, can we update some of the questions with feedback from this group? Absolutely. But I think that comes down the line a little bit. And maybe in the future, it's not we present you a fully done packet, but we say we're thinking of this person, what should we consider? There are other ways to approach that, but I really want to focus on the delivery of the content right now as a mechanism, as opposed to let's discuss the lesson plan about this person. Let's use this as an example, like, are we going down the right path here? In terms of what else can we do for the content? So appreciate your feedback. Rachel did share the lesson that you sent with us. So we can take it back, and I know Steve and Allison and Tony have had a lot of input in this too, and have kind of guided it down this road, so we can all work together on that.
So
And
Mike, now that I'm sorry, I just wanted to make a quick, because I have to leave in a second. To Danielle's point about accessibility and usability, you talk about form and format. These are not living documents. So if you create a template, a graphic organizer, whatever, it's gonna, if I use it, I'm gonna have to scan it, or I'm gonna take it from the website and have to post it on like a Google Classroom page, and the kids will not be able to use it as a live doc. So if there is a way to create a package wherein these documents could be live, and then when I am, as a teacher, take them and post them to my digital space, my digital classroom, if I'm using a digital classroom, many teachers do nowadays, I don't have, because the kids get very hung up, and there are like extensions for Chrome, like Cami and stuff, they're garbage, they suck. So if there's a way to do that, I think that would be very helpful, and it would increase usability and the amount of traffic that you guys got. So.
What I think I hear Allison saying is it'd be easier if some of this was broken out, so you could just grab it. It's a Google Doc that's view, and you can make a copy of it, and there's PDF versions that maybe you could download and have it so that it's pieces that teachers could access that way. Is that what you were saying, Allison? Yeah, that's what I thought.
And I think that's something we're missing now that we current at CTH for Teach It is one of the big things Misa identified is you can't download something and then just hand it out or take it, right? So I think this is kind of our first foray into that, and I think working with this group, we'll figure out what makes sense to have that, what is the format that looks like, what makes sense to include in kind of a quick hit. We're open to a lot of suggestions for that, and Allison, we might want to talk to you more about the extensions and things like that, and where we can put things for teachers to get, because I honestly don't know, and we have these questions.
Danielle?
Yeah, if there could be like, I know this might be a little weird, but like versions like a Word doc version, a Microsoft like Word version, and then a PDF. So that this way, if schools are Microsoft schools, if they're a Google school, and then if they just want a straight up PDF, then they have 3 versions, and then they can make their version. Like, for instance, like my district, we're a Google district, but a friend of mine teaches in a district in there, like a Microsoft district. So if you're posting it where teachers can download it, they can download it based on of whatever works for their district. And then they can manipulate it however it works best for them.
Oh, wow, please.
Yeah, this is such a rich conversation, and you guys are making me feel really old because this is not the way I was taught in the 8th grade. So this is this is just fascinating in terms of the way technology and other things have been integrated and the way in which you present information and lesson plans. The only suggestion I have is as we think about the type of questions that we use, and I think you do some of this in the questions, but those themes of America 250 that they're really woven into the kind of questions to get the students to sort of think along those lines, I think is just really important. I think they're great themes, and I think to the extent that they're flushing out some of those issues around, telling inclusive stories and power play. I mean, just to make sure that that is very, that gets their mind sort of thinking about some of that. I'll leave it to you guys about the difference between the 8th, the 5th, and high school in terms of, and that's just out of my area of expertise in terms of what they're prepared to talk about. But I think that is, an obvious question there. I looked at this and I went, wow, they're at a place in the 8th grade that I didn't know they were at. I mean, just looking at some of the kinds of questions and other things. And this may be just making sure the age appropriate thing is really something we think seriously about.
Anyone else?
In terms of the format of the document. Oh, Liz, were you about to go?
No, you go and I'll come after you.
Oh, okay, cool. I thought that the page with the article with the 3 columns, I thought that was a good format. I like that because for tracking of words across the page, that can help for people that are, struggling, I guess you could say. I just hope that the page that's here, like just make sure it's within the print margins of what a normal printer could do. Maybe it's, I forget what it is, 0.3 or 0.5 or something like that. Again, just for ease for teachers. I do want to echo what Tracy had said before. I'm not going to go over all the comments that she made, but I thought she had some really great valid points about what the lesson plan could be. And I know we're not commenting on lessons or the content right now. And I want to add that I'm looking at the standards. I just hope that there's there's like 8 standards listed here. And I wonder, are teachers really going to be evaluating or assessing or focusing on each of these? And which of the standards might be most relevant to what
Priority standards, you might call them.
I wouldn't even call them priority standards, because what I would do is I would get rid of the ones that we really aren't going to use. Like, if they're not really going to explain how the compelling questions and supporting questions represent key ideas in the study of United States history, let's cut that out, right? Just because it says compelling and supporting questions doesn't mean we should include it. Develop compelling and supporting, I'd have to go back and look. Maybe that makes sense. So I would, again, evaluate the standards that are listed here to maybe cut it back a little bit. I'm not sure about the content standards. I'm sure they're probably fine. But again, I want to think about what's the end thing that they're going to make. They're going to be writing a letter, and then which of those standards are going to be actually in that activity. Like a teacher's going to make a rubric about it or what have you. So I think that's both content and form. Not critical feedback, just I guess maybe more preference than anything else. Thanks.
I think Liz, you were going to go?
Tracy and I talked about this today. We looked over the whole thing, and I totally agree with her, and I understand that we're not doing content, but here's what I would say. At the beginning, if you're in an 8th grade class, a 5th grade class, and even a high school class, to start with a question that's related to what's happening today, why is voice important in American society? Whose voices are heard? And then bring it back to the time period that you're going back to, I think is engaging. I don't know, I think I would add vocabulary. While this is very simple, but I'm thinking about Danielle's point about different students. So there might be a necessity for making sure that everybody has the same vocabulary. I am concerned. I'll give you an example. There's a question that was here, and I thought, I don't know how kids are going to answer that question. And maybe that's because we haven't seen all the material. Like how has her role influenced public opinion? Well, you don't really know that unless you see documents. If you saw documents from the, committees of correspondence at the time period, and then you explain what a publisher does, and then you sort of build, you have you sort of build on that, then that makes some sense. So I would just be careful about the kinds of questions you ask and whether or not though that analysis can be done with what you present, with the kinds of information that you present there. I mean, I love the idea of using this woman. I've never heard of her. And, so I think that's awesome to choose people like her, like Lemuel Haynes, in this. But I also wonder about civic engagement. I think I agree, you can do timelines and newspaper articles. I think 8th grade kids, I even think 5th grade kids, we've had experiences with 5th grade kids as well, can do more with civic engagement in the community. So you might think a little bit more broadly about the different possibilities. And you might even also bring in art and music, different kinds of modalities for kids. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, and Liz, just to kind of echo a little bit of that and just, moving forward for just maybe to keep in the back of your head, I also, when you're using just the one closed source, in this case, it's the biography of one woman. And Mike, you said that there's not really a lot of information on this woman, so it just kind of came from, the limited access to a limited amount of sources. The kids can get stuck in these binaries, these ways of thinking where it's like, oh, she owned a newspaper, so like other women must have owned newspapers too, and it was probably fine to be a woman in the 1770s. I'm sure it was cool because like Hannah owned a newspaper, cool. And it can set them up sometimes at higher levels when they're thinking and doing critical thinking for unrealistic expectations. They almost get like disappointed when I have them in US history and I'm like, well, guys, I hate to break it to you, but it wasn't that great for women. And wait till I tell you about Black women, and then wait till I tell you about Indigenous people, and then they just get in this like this funk of. And so I would caution about that siloing of the one woman story as representative of all woman stories, or the one Indigenous person story that's indicative of yada yada yada, and maybe a way of framing something like this, moving forward in terms of, because you're thinking about content and skill progression with these formats and with this content, right, from 5 through high school. Are there revolutions that take place within the revolution? And
Yeah,
is this one of those?
absolutely. Yep.
So you, again, just the way that the kids are thinking and accessing, and we're really, I think in this age, we need to be, especially with something about media and the news, which this is, I think we need to be very responsible in the way that we're teaching this and having students access these big ideas about the news cycle and who's controlling information and maybe the bias of the Connecticut current in the 1770s. I think these are all really essential questions that could be part of the package, and questions that you could carry through a progression from 5 through high school with the packages you're creating, Misa. Just a suggestion, but it's just kind of to echo everybody's sentiments and sort of bring it together.
Daisha, Allison, or Ruth, any of you have comments?
No, this is Ruth. No, Stephen, thank you for remembering I'm here.
Yep, thank you. Daisha or Allison?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting. We have a panel on Hannah Bun-Swanson here at the Old State House, so it was nice to kind of see some, continuity in those stories. But I definitely kind of also agree with what the other Allison, what you said as well, about kind of making sure that we come across with the significance of why kind of we're focusing on these people, right? So the reason why we would focus on Hannah Bun-Swanson is because she was a trailblazer and kind of the only one, and so letting them know that these are pioneers in that way and not just the status quo. I think it's fantastic to have, these very varied stories and varied perspectives, but I like the idea of kind of making sure they understand the gravity of why whoever made this lesson chose these people.
That, if there's nothing else, that was very helpful.
Hey, Stephen, just on the last point that Allison made, the last Allison spoke made, I just think, to me, it comes back to what those themes are, because you're bringing in an inclusive story, and I think that needs to lead in why you're doing this. And, to the extent that you're able to elevate even some people that the students may have never heard of and would be fascinated to find out about, and providing that sort of explanation, you know, and how you frame this about why you're bringing in this person, this indigenous person who may have played a role that we have not talked about enough, that we should be talking about, and, you know, perspectives that people are bringing and reactions to the revolution themselves, you know, in enslaved populations, right? I love that idea, people running away. And I mean, it just, which I hadn't even really thought about as much, you know, out in the North, because people tend not to think of slavery really existing in the North much. And it's really a Southern thing. So I like the direction that this is moving in. I just think, you know, those themes really provide us with a way of presenting and why we're doing what we're doing the way we're doing it.
And I'll just add in really quickly. Sorry, I'm going to be off camera today, but just kind of echoing, I agree with all the points that were made. I think just any present day connections that students can draw is always going to be important, especially in this climate that we're in, where students are experiencing the news cycle, as Allison said. And I think also just lastly, in terms of connecting it to the broader ideals, in terms of the people that are highlighted, although it is important to kind of like identify those trailblazers who were able to make change with their circumstances, I do think highlighting also everyday people to the extent that we can in terms of what they did, just because I think it contributes to the larger story. And also just when highlighting Black and Indigenous people of color, I think oftentimes the story, as I think I've said this previously before, the story, it's kind of framed where Black and Indigenous people are reacting to the founding ideals as opposed to helping to craft them themselves and being contributors ideologically to that. And there's a lot of Black and Indigenous writers that haven't been highlighted where students can just go through their work and see the ideals that they had. I've brought up Benjamin Banneker before in his letters to Thomas Jefferson, but I think that there are sources that we can use to highlight that. I think for Indigenous people to be able to look at what were the values and the cultural systems that existed in New England and how did those ideas also contribute to this larger idea of democracy might also be important kind of links that might not focus so much on people entirely, but just process and collective contributions, if that makes sense. Sorry, my mind is a little jumbled today, everyone.
Thank you, Desha. Cindy, I think you wanted to talk to the group or ask the group about youth groups and connecting to them. So how about if we turn to that agenda item?
Yeah, thanks for your input, everybody. We have been thinking a lot, and by we, I mean the commission has had a lot of conversations around how we're engaging students, youth members, like younger people. And what we'll say is that realistically, the staff at Connecticut Humanities does not have a lot of capacity to engage a lot of members of the youth community, but we do want to engage in conversations with organizations who are primarily serving youth. So all that to say, we've been trying to get a convening of these organizations off the ground and have really been struggling for a variety of reasons. One, we don't have a lot of connections with those folks. So that has made it difficult to get them to respond to our emails. So we are curious and looking for any guidance you might have for perhaps smaller groups of people that we can bring together and anyone who can connect us with those people. For example, we're thinking of getting a group of people engaged in ROCAPA together to have a conversation around the 250th. We would love to have a conversation with people who had a programming at Boys and Girls Clubs around the state. But that's one of the groups we've been struggling to hear back from. Boys and Girl Scouts. So if you all have any connections, particularly with kind of the organizing body in the state or people who might be able to connect us with them, we would welcome having a conversation around what that could look like and making an introduction. We can provide a blurb about the 250th, and we're really just looking for 10 to 15 minutes to share what we're doing, who they can connect with. We can share the museums that have become affiliates. We can share the towns that already have local committees. We're also happy to share ideas for local committees with those local committees. They're always happy to take any ideas that we as a group come up with and implement them on a more local level. So what we're looking for is any guidance in terms of who we can be conversing with and how we can go about connecting with those people. So whether
Hey,
that's,
Daisha.
yeah, what was that?
No, I was, sorry.
Oh, no, you're okay.
Could I just say, for those that don't know, Rho Kappa, Cindy mentioned that it's a high school or middle school social studies honor societies, and there's 21 of them in the state, 21 schools in the state that sponsor these. So I would be willing to, I know the chairs of most of them, I'd be willing to reach out and see that might be a group to get. Tracy, you were going to speak. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, I mean, my first reaction is find 5 teachers and have them bring 5 students to a meeting. But I guess my second point is what is the purpose of this group? Like, are they going to put together programming, or are we just informing them, or what exactly would these students be doing?
Yeah, and I think what we're hoping is that these students or these people running these programs really will theme their programs around the 250th in the next year and a half. In situations where it makes sense, perhaps connect with local committees, connect with a museum in their local area that is doing work for the 250th. It's more, there has been, Bilal, an effort to connect with local media. They're interested, but I think they're waiting for something more splashy than people are meeting and talking about this and working on stuff. Yeah, but I think the hope is really that these groups of people will take things that they're already doing and kind of adopt the themes of the 250th, or connect with other people who are doing work along those lines. But making them aware that there is a 250th coming up, that there are themes and that there's something there to connect to, is really the hope.
Is there encouragement, and it maybe wouldn't come from this committee, for towns to have student representatives on their town committees?
Yeah, we've encouraged people. I don't think I've heard of anybody who has students on their town committee, but they've been encouraged to. I think people are intimidated for the most part. They're not quite sure how to engage students, and so they haven't invited students necessarily. A lot of the people are people in municipal government, and I don't think that's necessarily somewhere where there's a lot of student involvement. Yeah.
Hey, Cindy, I asked the question in part. I'm actually chair of the board for the CT Mirror, so I could really facilitate a conversation with the publisher if you wanted to sit down. And Bruce is very well connected with a lot of the other, especially some of the online media and some of the local sort of folks. And he's really great with generating ideas about ways to connect what we're trying to do, and at least getting the information out about it as well. That could be really helpful. And I think yeah, that could be. So just let me know if you want to try to do anything like that.
You know, another suggestion would be to work through the libraries. West Hartford has a youth council, and I know that a young woman who works down in Branford, and she runs the youth council and that library. So maybe checking through the libraries might be a way to do that too, because you know if they have kids working, you know, in conjunction with the librarians, that it's another possibility. So.
I do think, and I hate to be the person offering more problems and not solutions, but I think a lot of things, especially for like high school age and even middle school, it's just such a capacity thing. You know, like even if they're being offered this whole menu of opportunities, and it's just hard to know, you know, what to want to engage in, and you know, the most engaged kids are already going to be maxed out with what they're doing. So I think that's just going to be a hurdle too for any time you're just like, please come to our meeting, or you know, please, but they just have so much that they're doing that I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges as well.
Yeah, and I will say,
That's realistic. That's good. That's realistic.
yeah, I think that is part of the reason we're kind of hoping that organizations will take something that already exists and just put a skin on it. Because I agree that there's already a lot going on, and doubling what everyone is working on is crazy. So, always trying to be realistic about what this looks like.
That's why I'm hopeful, Cindy, that the ROCAPA people would be a likely, because they're already doing history.
Yeah.
So I would hope that they might be a likely target.
Yeah, that's great. And just to respond, Elizabeth, I do think libraries are a great idea. We have some engagement with the Connecticut Library Association, so we'll look for ways to perhaps engage them around that idea. And that might be a really tangible way that they can participate and help out with the effort.
Any other suggestions or comments?
Can I comment going back, or we're only going forward?
Whatever, Tracy, you want to comment on, go for it.
Okay. I just want to know if there's any plan for if the rollout of these lessons is just going to be posting them online, or if there's any professional development involved at all.
I can tell you that if CT Humanities would want to, and the commission would want to partner, that the Connecticut State Department of Ed would be very interested in at least co-sponsoring professional development associated with the rollout of these lessons.
I think that's something that we're figuring out as kind of even including the 250 committee and this work, what Connecticut Humanities is doing, because I know back and before my time, they did standalone professional development for Teach It. We're not looking to get back into that game. We're looking for partners to do these kind of things.
Well,
And
I'm offering you a partner right here.
let's do it, Steve. We got it.
I would just say it's a good idea, because Tracy and I were asked to talk to some teachers. There's a science teacher who's leading the charge at the high school. And of course, he's not a social studies teacher. He's very gracious, though, when he asked us for input. And the teachers are grappling because they have a lot to do, as you know, and they don't want extra stuff, but they do want to do something. And so they're looking for opportunities for professional development. So I would say that I bet you get quite a few teachers signed up to do something to help them sort of focus, figure out how to integrate materials into the curriculum, et cetera. So.
And I would say, from talking to him, into the whole school environment, like,
right.
This is not just a social studies thing, but
Exactly.
how
Yeah.
can our whole school
he's pretty over.
think about these ideas of freedom and
right. We gave him some ideas. I think his head was spinning at the end of the conversation. But But it was good. It was a good conversation, but I think teachers need professional development.
Allison R. Allison N is gone, so it's just Allison. Is, to your knowledge, Allison, is your place, the Democracy Center, going to be do any 250 specific programming?
We definitely have it always ever present in our mind. I don't think we have one particularly like scheduled as of right now, but it's definitely in kind of people's planning minds and thoughts. We definitely, with kind of our regular slate of programs, can hopefully tie it in. So I think hopefully in the coming months we'll be able to focus a little bit more on that, but we definitely haven't forgotten about it. It's kind of always in the talks, but unfortunately not right now. Not scheduled that I know of.
Thank you. Cindy, could you fill us in, or Mike or Rachel, or could somebody fill us in on, I'm sure there's going to be efforts to get more money from the state coffers this year. Do you have any optimistic words on that, or what would you say about that?
We're going to try all that we can, but it's going to be a very challenging year for a variety of reasons. Not the least of which the federal freeze in funding is going to impact a lot of things. So, including NEH, which is one of our major funders. So we are going to do all that we can to get as much funding as possible for culture, arts, tourism, and really moving all of these initiatives forward that we've been talking about. But I think we're not going to be the only ones that are feeling the impact of what's going on right now. So, but that doesn't stop us from trying. That's as optimistic as I can get. I'm sorry.
By the way, I've been away from the news all day. Has there been any more clarification on that federal freeze thing, or that's just where it was
Yeah, they
this morning?
don't, it's as expected, Steve. Like I just saw a CNN headline. They're like, not everything is impacted, but nobody can access money. So no one, they don't know. They issued some guidance. Jason sent it to us at like 3 o'clock about what's actually impacted, but it didn't clear anything up. So, yeah.
Cindy, what else you got for us? Anything? Mike, Rachel?
No, I think we're doing lots of great work. I hope everybody feels that way. And we look forward. I think 2025 is an exciting year. I think a lot of things that have been coming together for the last 2 years are going to turn into a product that all of a sudden is visible and easy to use. So I think we're excited about all of that. I hope that when you hear about the conference next week, that you're as excited as we are with the variety of people who are interested in talking about the 250th, and the variety of sessions that are available for kind of all kinds of different people. And that's what we were really hoping for when we envisioned this 2.5 years ago. So it's exciting to see it all come together. With so little money.
Cindy, when's our next, when are we meeting again, by the way?
The last Tuesday in April,
Okay.
I believe so.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we went to Quarterly.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
We did go to Quarterly.
So by then we should have, and if we need more feedback, which we likely will, we'll reach out via email. But by then we'll likely have a lot more fleshed out in terms of the content that we've been working on. So we look forward to sharing that and yeah, continuing along.
Something that I'm going to ask your opinion on, Cindy, with your permission. I think maybe the committee could write a sort of some talking points to town committees on using students.
Yeah,
So
I think that would be great.
So maybe we'll work on that, and I'll entice a few people from this group to help out with that, about that.
Yeah, That sounds wonderful. We meet
So-
with the town committees monthly and always have like 20 minutes of a presentation for them. So if one of those were a couple of folks from this subcommittee who are interested in sharing tips for working with students, they'd be happy to receive that information.
Cool. Bilal, from being involved in the press world in your capacity, how do we get PR on this?
I mean, I really think reaching out to some of the publishers, some of the editors to generate some interest, and I just think telling the story that this is coming forward is something that needs to be out there. And in the ideal world, as we get closer to 2026, I mean, there is coverage of local events that are going on in different towns, that there's a real sort of conversation. I mean, in the ideal world, I'd love to see students write letters to the editor and get them published, and highlighting to the extent that there are some great sort of activities that some students may engage in, even, taking into consideration what Allison is saying about time and ability to do it. But there may be some students that are actually doing some things, and those things should be highlighted. They should be talked about. They should be shared. And so I just think there is an important role, that the media can play in helping to really get us to think about some of these things and some of the work, and even thinking about some of the folks at, the university level, having them write op-eds and contribute to this conversation could be really useful. I just think the media has a part to play in this, especially given who we started with this example.
Anything else? Rachel, you have to have another meeting right after this, right?
Not
Or is this
today.
it? No more? You're kidding. This is it?
This is it.
Bilal, we're good? Thanks for your help today, folks. Greatly appreciated. Good comments.